This is Real Life with Deb Waterbury, a real show for real people with real issues. And now, here's your host, Dr. Deb Waterbury.
Welcome to this episode of Real Life with Deb Waterbury. We are still right in the middle of our mom series. We've had all kinds of episodes about being a working mom and ministry, mom and ministry we've had we've had ones about being stay-at-home moms. And I really felt like it was obviously really important that we speak to single moms because there's lots of women who are single for all varying reasons and are still find themselves in that mommy situation. So who I have with me today is Roseanna Gonzalez. Roseanna, actually I want to talk a little bit about Roseanna's ministry first, because I think your ministry really does even lend itself to your ability to be a single mom, because you deal so much with youth. But why don't you tell them a little bit about your ministry, and then we're going to talk about your single momdom.
Okay, so my ministry is called It's a Beautiful Life, and it's a multi-generational nonprofit that works with prenatal all the way up to death and everything in between. Sounds really broad, but it's really about just embracing certain circumstances, and that is really cool to tie into being a single mom, because obviously I wasn't a single mom my whole time of being a mom, but just really embracing the moment that you have in your life, whether it's a trial or whether it's something that you are just like a triumph in your life, just being able to come up alongside of other individual people, other nonprofits.
And to name some of the ways that you do that. How is it that you come alongside people in those different varying places of their lives?
Yeah, definitely. So in the past, we've worked with other local nonprofits that have amazing missions and visions in our community. Some of them are, Hands of Hope, Free Ever After, Sold No More, which are amazing faith-based ministries. We come up alongside of them, whether it's helping with volunteers. So we bring a lot of our youth, because we really believe in just mending and bridging together generations, young and old and everything in between. And we've helped with one of our main events, which we do annually. It's called Youth for Freedom Youth Fashion Show. Yes. We changed it this year to Youth for Freedom Youth Expo. And so we get our younger generation. We create a platform for our youth, and they do a fashion show. They do just whatever God gifted them with their singing abilities, whatever it is. And we do an amazing event, and we raise funds through that event, and 100% of those proceeds that we raise go to
sorry about the dog
goes to that specific nominated nonprofit.
Very good.
So it's a way for our younger generation to be able to give back.
Yeah, I know when I had Roseanna on my show about a year ago, when I was on the radio, Roseanna brought youth with you.
Yeah.
And they actually were speaking more to what you were doing than you told them. You turned it over to them, and it was just really inspiring to see how you were bringing youth in to make change. And then what you're doing, you're really building kingdom builders right there, even in your youth.
Yeah, exactly. So, this generation just blows my mind. They're so gifted, and they're so, they just move mountains.
They
and
do.
You just give them the opportunity, and they do it.
That's exactly right.
So it's really big for us to pour into our younger generation. So that's one of our biggest component in It's a Beautiful Life, is bringing our younger generation to connect with other generations and really be the body for Christ. So.
Excellent. Well, you'll be able to get the information about It's a Wonderful Life just right underneath if you're watching this. It's a Beautiful Life. Does it say wonderful?
Yeah.
Because it's my favorite Christmas movie. I do that all the time. It's a Beautiful Life. And you'll be able to get that underneath here. We'll have all the information so you can connect with Roseanna and see more of what she's doing and under the information here. But right now, what I want to talk about, and you were obviously who I thought of very quickly in terms of being a single mom. Yeah. My favorite story to share about you, and I have to share it before we even start.
Sure.
Roseanna is a single mom, and how many kids do you have?
50. No, I'm just kidding.
Exactly. It's about that, yeah. But even though you only have 5 that are yours, only have 5, you have a myriad of kids that when they are in need, you'll just take them in.
Yes.
And so you kind of have a revolving door in your house, even as a single mom, when children are in need. And I remember we were at a citywide prayer event, and your youngest, Allie, was standing there talking to my husband, and I was listening, and she had a little boy with her. And my husband looked at Ollie and said, "Who's this little boy?" And she said, which was just typical of you, she said, "Well, we don't know his name. He lives with us and he's part of our family, but we don't know his name." And as soon as she said that, I was like, all right, that epitomizes Roseanna right there. Her children are like, yep, this is part of our family. We're not sure of his name yet, but he's part of our family. And I that just, to me was just the demonstration of your heart for kids. So that obviously, to me, also qualified you above so many other people to talk about being a single mom. And there are moms who are single from the very beginning because they just never were married. Most people who find themselves in the position of being a single mom either went through a death or a divorce. So it's kind of something you're thrust into, yeah?
Yeah.
So what circumstances brought you into being a single mom first?
Yeah, definitely. Well, obviously, motherhood is like my first and most important ministry outside of It's a Beautiful Life.
Very good.
But yeah, I was married for 13 years, so it was really not something that I planned. Obviously, we don't plan to be single, right? But
right.
I, really embraced certain seasons of my life. So I was a stay-at-home mom, with my kids and getting them ready for school, and then jumping into the workforce, so being a mom of, being married, raising children, and going to work. And then unfortunately, about 7 years ago, became divorced out of a 13-year marriage, which was very devastating for me and my kids.
Of course.
But it was a really big, I want to say like a learning experience for me. It's not something that I'm like, yes, I'm going to embrace being single, a single mom and struggling.
Yeah, no, I don't think too many people do that.
But I did really, find a comfort with God in that circumstance. And that was just really not embracing being a single mom and the struggles of it, but really just embracing on who I was as a single person, as a mother of 5, a mother doing ministry, doing other different things in the community. And so really just what does that look like and why am I here? And there's times where, I fell into these sad, feel sorry for me, victim modes, Of
course. We're only human. We're going to do that. And, it is a sad situation. And it can probably, I'm sure, at the very beginning, it must have looked like insurmountable to you, at least for a minute or two.
Yes, especially when it was that transition within the first 2 years of my divorce. I had no idea what I was doing. I realized how codependent I was of my spouse and how much I took him for granted and my children for granted and just the circumstances of stability for granted. And so now having to adjust that and really figure out about my finances and just things that I had to let go of and take on new responsibilities was the biggest trial for me.
So how old are your kids? What's the age range that you have at home right now?
So
not even home right now because you got one that's not home, right?
No, I know. It makes me so sad. And it's funny because I feel like from the time that they were little, they were just so back to back in age that people would be like, "Oh, your little quail babies," because they would trail behind me. And now I have other people's kids behind me.
Behind you, I know.
But my oldest is 19, and he, goes to the same university that I go to. I go to Grand Canyon University, and so he was a freshman, and I'm working on my doctorates there. And so then I have my next one, which is 17 years old, and he'll be a senior upcoming, which is really
exciting for him.
Exciting
not so much
for
Mama.
him, sad for me. And then my 15, soon to be 16, he'll be 16 next week.
Wow.
Yeah, and he's the tallest one out of all of them.
He is, yes.
And then my next one, I have my 12-year-old and then my 8-year-old.
Yes, very good. So it's 4 boys and
1 girl.
1 girl. Allie's the 8-year-old.
Yep.
She's the little girl.
She's the baby.
Yeah, she's the baby. All right, so obviously you can speak to so many things, I think, in terms of what women deal with. I mean, even as a married woman with kids, I felt like a single mom a lot of our marriage because Jeff was gone so much, and he'd be gone for 8, 10, 12 months out of the years, and so I felt a lot like a single mom. But I always had an end in sight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I knew he was coming home. So even though sometimes, I was like, whatever, I'm doing better without you. but still, I knew that I was going to get help.
Yeah.
Tell me then, for a single mom who you're in this situation, you've got 5 kids or 4 kids or 2 kids or 7 kids, whatever. and you've got to take care of them. What is the biggest challenge for you? What was the biggest challenge for you?
Yeah, definitely. So I can actually relate to you because when I was married, their dad was deployed too. So I
right, I forgot about that.
So
yes.
I had that anticipation of him coming home, and so that's probably the biggest challenge. I mean, there's a lot of challenges being a single parent, but one of the biggest ones is the whole anticipation of being able to hand off the baton to your significant other.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's like there's no time out for you when you're a single parent. It's like from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep, it's like
you're it.
It's hands down. You got to do what you got to do, and you know, when it's like laundry or paying the bills or getting them ready for school or just those life circumstances that they're struggling with, you know, you're the one that they have to go to, and you have to figure it out. And it's not someone that you can like talk to about it. Like,
no, right?
Yeah.
Even though I think if you can find a support group, of other single moms, that's a great thing. But when do you have time to do that? I mean, goodness gracious, and the single moms that I talk to, that's more of their thing. They're like, yeah, it'd be great if I could be in a support group, but I wouldn't have time to go if I had one. So how did you deal with that? Because your kids are phenomenal, and so I'm wondering how you dealt with this 100%. It's always me. I got to bring home the bacon while I'm frying it and making sure they're eating it. I mean, how do you do that? What did you do?
I love your analogies. So I do have to be very transparent and honest with you. You know, I'm very fortunate. It's not ideal. I do really have a good working relationship with their dad, and so that does help. It wasn't like that for the first 2 to 3 years. It was something that we had to really develop and really put our differences aside.
Right.
And that was like the maturity part between both him and I.
Right.
But really just honing in on, hey, our kids come first. You know, what we're going through doesn't really matter, and just really thinking about their well-being and stuff like that. So, but, you know, at the end of the day, he goes to his house, I go to my house, and I got to pay my own bills. And and I have my kids, and, you know, taking them to the different things that we're doing. It really takes a lot of prayer time.
Yes.
I really have to dig deep into prayer, because if not, I'd probably lose my mind. But I really, you know, take the opportunity to wake up really early in the morning. If you're on my Facebook and you see the green light at 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm sorry, but yes, I am up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I am up at 4 o'clock in the morning, you know, just really having my quiet time with the Lord and doing my daily devotions.
Did you find that spiritual health for you really was the key to being able to balance all the billions of other things that are going to come at you during the day?
Yes, because there was a time, again, within that 2 to 3 year bracket of time when I first became a single parent, I was trying to do it on my own, and there was no way that I could last as long as I am standing right now. I wouldn't have lasted if I didn't have God in the center of that, and really understanding the importance of my alone time with Him, and really just inviting Him to help me with that balance, because I wouldn't be able to do it.
And I think that is really the challenge for me as I counsel moms, to instill in them this absolute importance of that time.
Yes.
Because I understand, you know, that you're so tired and you got so much to do, and by the time you get to bed, you just want to sleep.
Oh, yeah.
And you want to sleep until you have to get up. I mean, I get that you're physically exhausted, but if you can't get up a few minutes earlier and spend that time with the Lord, you're drawing from an empty cistern. I mean, you're trying to get from an empty well. And the only way you're going to get that well filled up is by God. But it's hard to imagine that if I give up sleep, I'm going to be more rested. The truth is, you may have some time where you're physically exhausted, but you have the reserves to deal with all of the physical exhaustion and all the emotional, spiritual, physical stresses are going to be on your life because you are a single mom.
Yes.
You have to have, I don't know how people do it without God. I really don't.
Yeah, I didn't do it without God.
Well, that's it. And
I was burning to the ground with all that.
And you have a really good way to compare that, because you did it without and then recognize, oh my goodness, what am I doing?
Yes.
And then see the difference between the two.
Yes.
I mean, what is it? Can you give me a situation where you see where I handled it this way before and I handle it this way now? I mean, so that people can say this is really and truly a big deal, to just the difference having time with God makes.
Yeah, definitely. It was really just I was so lost. I was like, who am I? You know, now that I'm not married and I'm a single parent, okay, I know I'm, you know, Anthony, Adrian, Alex, and Ollie's mom, but there has to be, what happens when they grow up and they leave the house? And I'm already dealing with that. I'm having a hard time with it. And that's something that God has, like, really worked on me with, of, like, just, okay, you did your part, now you got to let them go. And so it's really hard. But, you know, I was really struggling trying to find my footing and my place in this huge, gigantic world. And I was like, okay, so who am I exactly? And when I started delving deeper into really figuring out who I was, my identity in Christ, is when things started making sense. And I didn't have to try so hard to figure out who I was. It just started kind of unfolding naturally and more organically. And I was like, okay, things are starting to make sense now. And so, you know, walking with the Lord has just made it easier to not have to force or kick a door open and try to walk through it. It's more, He guides you in those directions and
so
puts
good.
you in front of the right people, with the right people. Speaking of you, and in our small group, and just the amazing people that He blesses you with along the way. And even though, you know, sometimes we find our trials through those circumstances, it wasn't those circumstances defining who I am.
Very good.
And so, yes.
Preach it, sister. Man, that stuff will preach.
Being a single mom, yes, is rough. But I know, just like, you know, the struggles of being a stay-at-home mom, you know, feeling like you have no no friends outside of your 5 or 6 year old, and you're struggling, you know, trying to stay up and, you know, throughout the night to do laundry or whatever. It's the same struggles as being a single mom, you know, just trying to identify who you are and not letting those circumstances define you. And so that's what's gotten me through.
Would that be the biggest piece of advice you'd have for single moms right now?
Yes, not letting your circumstances define who you are as a woman, as a parent.
As just a child of God.
Yes. Yep.
That is so good. Because, you know, that's true of everybody, but it's significantly true when you're taking care of little people, because you become everything to them, and so therefore it's easy for your identity to become tied to whatever's going on with them. Which is not, that doesn't help anybody.
No. Well, and I have to admit too, even, you know, when they're gone, when they go like to their dad's house and I have a house by myself, for the longest time I really dreaded those quiet moments. I really dreaded those quiet moments. I would do my best to busy myself enough to get out of the house and not deal with those ongoing drilling moments of like, oh my gosh, here I am alone. I'm a single person. I'm going to be by myself for the rest of my life, and just feeling, you know, sorry for yourself. And so, but again, when I started delving closer and having a relationship with Christ, closer relationship with Him, He started saying, hey, you know what, embrace those moments. Not because you need like everything to be dropped, you know, needle quiet, but just really identify who you are in these moments of quiet. And so it was like, at first I was like, I can't do it.
Because your identity was probably more tied to them
and to everything else.
Than it needed to be, and instead of to Jesus. And He was giving you those times to, which is so why it's so important, if you don't have those times, to get up early enough to have them. And if you just can't get up early enough to have them, then stay up late enough to have them. But I'll tell you that I say to every woman and every man I meet that, and we talk about this because I almost always talk about this, get up. Starting your day with the lover of your souls is what energizes you. If you end your day that way, it's a sweet ending to put you to sleep, but you still got to get up the next day and get energized. So it's better to energize yourself in the morning with the one thing that is like your just forever battery.
True.
I think that's, but if you can't do it, then obviously do it at some point.
Well, and also too, I feel like some people are like, say, you know, there's no such thing as multitasking, but as a single parent, you have to juggle so many different things, not by choice, but because you have to. And sometimes being more intentional with your time. So like if you're waiting at a doctor's appointment, you know, you can really be on your, you know, YouVersion on your phone if you have your phone, or just bring out your Bible, or bring out your material. Sometimes I'll do my homework in between, you know, doctor's appointments, or if I'm waiting for my kids' basketball game to start, I'm like on the floor doing my homework, or whatever I need to do to be with the Lord. You're make it a priority.
Advantage.
Yes.
Very good.
Be intentional with your time.
That is such good advice, Roseanna. And everything you've said has been such good
Thank you.
advice. Yeah, and I knew you'd be who I needed to talk to about it. It is not easy to be a mom, and we've said this through every single one of our shows on the Mom series. It's not easy, but it is the most important thing God has ever given you to do. It's secondary to everything else. If you're still married, and we've talked about this when we were just talking about being in a marriage, then obviously it goes God, your husband, and your children.
Yeah.
If circumstances have taken the second out of there, then it's God and then your children, not the other way around.
Yeah.
If you don't make sure that you're putting God first, then your children will naturally take that place. On the other side of that, though, it is God and then your children. They are next to God, the most important thing that you do, and He gave them to you. So It's hard, it's important, you're going to struggle, and you're not going to be able to do it in joy, peace, love, comfort, and harmony if you don't have the Lord first.
True. I also have to add, though, when you make that God as your priority, really look at it as your self-care time, too.
Yes.
That's oh my gosh, so critical, because there's times where I felt like I was burning myself to the ground and I couldn't do it anymore. And so just having that alone time with God is my self-care time.
That's so good,
so
too,
important.
because the world tells you to put self and make sure you take care of self. And the truth is, you're doing that with your number one.
Yep.
Very good, Roseanna. Well, thank you so much for those of you who have joined us. I pray that this has encouraged you. Please look into It's a Beautiful Life. This is a phenomenal ministry, and look at everything that Roseanna's doing. Thank you for being with me.
Thank you.
God bless you all. See you next time.
Bye.
Thank you for joining me today on this episode of Real Life with Deb Waterbury. I hope it's been a blessing to you as much as it was to me. If you want any of my books or information on articles or any of my speaking engagements, you can go to my website at debwaterbury.com. God bless you.